Are you ready?
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Parishscope. This is the podcast that acts as an arm of our newsletter at St. John's Lutheran Church, the Parishscope. I am Pastor Chris Sansom.
And I'm Casey Doremus. I'm the Creative Worship Director at Our Savior Lutheran.
Well, Casey, guess what?
What?
We are not restricted by time tonight.
Yes.
I know, right? It's a good thing. It's a good thing. So no restrictions on time. So we're good to go. Unlike last week where we had to I felt like we had to rush through some things, but
we have to ask people's
tonight.
opinion. We need to ask people's opinion. Like, they're probably like, man, it was really well just, they just packaged it. It was so quick and easy to understand and all that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. So, starting off, we have I usually start off with kind of like a current event thing. And I'll be honest with you. So I had kind of an interesting question come to mind. I was flipping through TikTok and John Stossel came up. Do you know who John Stossel is?
I do not.
Okay. So I'm going to date myself a little bit. So John Stossel is used to be like a news commentator. He used to be on a show called 2020.
Oh, okay. I've heard. I know 2020.
Yeah. And it's one of those things. Like back when I was a kid, like, man, your parents used to watch 2020, and then when I when I got old enough, I kind of watched 2020, and I think it's still on the air. Like I think it is.
I think so.
I used to watch it in its heyday with like Barbara Walters and all that.
Oh yes.
But they had this news guy, the news commentator, journalist, if you will, named John Stossel, and if I'm honest, he's usually pretty conservative bent. And I don't think he's on 2020 anymore. He kind of just does his own thing. But anyway, he popped up on my feed and he was talking about free speech. And I thought the point that he was making was very interesting. And I thought it was very interesting for a couple different reasons. For one, he kind of went after the right a little bit. And, for a guy that's typically pretty conservative, I kind of appreciated that. I think it makes you a little bit more even keel, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, I think it's good to have a reality check every so often, as long as it's actually within reason of like something that's real. But yeah.
So the first thing he started doing was like he the basic premise of the whole little thing, which was like 5 minutes long, was it seems like freedom of speech is only important when you're not in power. And so then, of course, we talked about like during COVID, especially people that were, more liberal tended to try to censor speech or, and again, a lot of stuff just came out recently that YouTube was censored, Facebook was censored. Like the government actually like tried to censor them so that they couldn't say certain things that were maybe unpopular opinions, so to speak.
I think they said they were very heavily pressured by the government. So I think sort of, to me, that sounds like kind of threats almost.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know.
Exactly. And of course the right in this regard, kind of throws up their arms and goes, well, free speech is for all speech, not just the speech that you like or you agree with.
Right.
But then Stossel kept going and he started bringing up clips of, like the FCC chair whenever he made comments about Kimmel and talking about how, because Kimmel was giving misinformation that maybe he should be, maybe ABC should be fined or something like that. And even Trump made some comment about how he thought certain speech should be considered illegal. And, and it was just this it was like, the FCC thing on Kimmel. I remember hearing that. I do. Yeah. And I'm sure that was a factor in pulling him. Now, that being said, I got the impression when I was doing my own reading that the main reason that he was being pulled was because the audience from these very particular, companies were offended by what he said.
Right.
That being said, what the FCC chair did and what he did say would be technically, against free speech, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But then that got me thinking, So again, it was interesting because it was definitely something that was like, this is when the left is against free speech and this is when the right is against free speech. And again, he made
Mm-hmm.
a really good argument. I think that's, I think that's something that needs to be evaluated, right? Like we can't have it. We can't be running around saying free speech whenever it's against us, but then,
Right. Yes, of
then
course.
on the other side being against the other person. That's not the way that works. Um, but then it got me to thinking, is free speech like a biblical right? Is it like a biblical mandate kind of thing?
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, I haven't really thought of that.
And well, and that's what it is. That's why I started thinking about that. I was like, well, is it? I mean, because again, we talk about it all the time. This is a great country. We're we're not technically a Christian country per se, but yet we are a lot of very Christian, Christ centered folks, by
Yeah,
and large. Um, and so that got me thinking, and I was like looking up some of this stuff, like just ask and posing that question, like, is free speech a Christian virtue? And so there you go. There's my thought of the day, kind of.
that's well. Here, let me. I don't know if this will get off topic, but you say like, is it a Christian value? Is that how you phrase it?
Yeah, a value or a virtue.
Um, because the first thing that popped in my head is free will. A Christian value, or like, I mean, because that's freedom of speech is, I don't know, to me it kind of is the same thing. It's like you have free will to say whatever you want. um and that the thing with like with Kimmel, and I know some people were really upset because, oh, they're trying to censor him, but it's also like he can say whatever he wants, but that doesn't mean there's no consequences for what you say. And that's true anywhere you go in life. If you're at a bar and you start mouthing off to the wrong person, you can mouth off as much as you want, but that doesn't mean you can control the consequence of what will happen to you. But I mean, I wouldn't consider free will to be really a Christian virtue, only because we typically choose the wrong thing and sin. I don't know. Am I going off on a tangent that
Well,
doesn't make any sense?
I think you're expressing the way a lot of people probably think. Um, I think free will's maybe not the correct approach to go down, just because
Okay.
free will is one of those things. Like I would argue that as a Lutheran, when it comes to things of salvation, we don't necessarily have free will. That is to say, like outside of the working of the Holy Spirit, what can we do to earn our own salvation? Well, we can do nothing, which means the
Right.
only things we can do actually work against us. And in that regard, is it really free? You know,
Yeah.
and Luther would even agree with me anyway, because I've read Luther, and he'd say, no, 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 the person is bound. Uh,
Right. Right.
their will isn't free. In fact, they are bound. Now that doesn't mean that when I wake up in the morning, I can't determine which shirt I'm going to wear.
Well,
But my shirt and the shirt that I choose isn't going to be, salvific, if you will. Um,
see, when you say bound, is it the way? I mean, I kind of think of like, is it bound, or like there's sort of like there is a track, or there is a path you are supposed to take if you want to live, if you want to be what God wants us to be. And of course you're going to stumble and you're going to fall and you're going to have issues with that track. But I mean, sorry, I don't know if I'm losing it here, but because I just, when people hear the word bound, I think they get very like, oh, he's like talking about like slavery, like you're a slave to something,
mhm.
like, and I don't think of it as like, I mean, I don't know. I guess you could, we've talked about how the Old Testament slave meant something very different, but it's, to me, it's like you can choose not to follow God. That's not a great idea. I don't think it's going to lead you down a good path, and I think it's going to bring you a lot of heartache. But you can try your hardest to get off of that path, I guess. But I don't know. I'm just like, the word bound. It's like, to me, it's. I feel like some people might view that like get like a red flag to them, like, oh, I don't like that word, and maybe that's part of the issue of today.
Well, and again, though, I mean, to some degree, though, that's part of the scandal of the gospel, right? Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
right. It is. It's kind of a horrible phrase, and we don't like it per se. But that's
Yeah.
actually, When we approach the gospel does scandalize us. It is scandalous. It's absolutely scandalous, and that is part of the scandal. Um, and that kind of goes with it to basically say no, no, no. I mean, again, it's one of those things. Like, yeah, I mean, again, you're not. How to put it? I'm trying to think of a different way to maybe put it to make it maybe of a better understanding. Um, you know, imagine you're trying to win a tennis game,
Mm-hmm.
okay? But you by your own ability and own your own authority can only play tennis while you're in a car, like inside a car.
Uh-huh.
Like you're never going to win that tennis match.
Right.
Like you can you can kind of smack the ball around, but honestly, if you do that, you're going to probably hit yourself in the head and everything else. Now you can choose to buckle your seatbelt or unbuckle your seatbelt. You can choose to lay across the back or whatever, but you can't make the choice to go to the court. You know, somebody
Right.
else has to let you out of the car, and somebody else has to kind of take you over to the court and let you in. Um, and you can't do that on your own.
Right.
And so, in that regard, you know, you are bound to not be a good tennis player. You know,
Right.
um, I know this is a bad example. I mean, this is really just off the cuff. I'm just trying to think of stuff.
Yeah, no,
Um, you know,
I think I'm seeing what you mean is like let me see if if this makes sense, but are you kind of the point you're trying to make is that following the path means that we are restricted in other things in life
well, no, no,
or
not even
no?
say like you know, again. So one of the things that you're saying, like, okay, there's this path, right? And
Right.
you're saying, well, there's this path that kind of ultimately leads to doing good things and getting to heaven, right?
Right.
Yeah. See, and to be really blunt about it, that is a very Catholic understanding of salvation.
Well, that's a twist. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
I
and
had
I
to throw some on you.
well, and I don't mean it in the sense of like, oh, you know, it like the idea of you if you do so many good things, you get to have you know, like I don't mean it as like that
Oh, sure, I
standpoint
understand.
of like, but just the fact that I mean, being a Christian means you have to. At least to me, I feel like you're supposed to hold yourself in a certain way. You know, you're supposed to. I mean, we're called to be a certain type of person, and you know,
Well, again, though, you
yeah,
know, and that's you know that form of what we'd call active righteousness. We can talk about that, but to be honest, when we get to the realm of salvation, it doesn't that doesn't mean nothing. That doesn't mean anything.
yeah,
You know, again, like you know, again, look at all the good works that you do, and guaranteed, you dig deep enough, you'll find some element of sin twisted in there with it.
right.
You know,
Oh,
so even your good works aren't good works.
true. Yeah, there's always something that
Yeah,
can
so
be
even
a
your good
personal
works are still
gain.
sinful, and that's
Yeah,
what we
and
mean
that's
by saying that you are bound. You know,
yes. Ah, I gotcha. Okay,
so
light
you're
bulb
bound
went
in that
out.
you can't do anything. There is nothing that you can do to even take one step on any path that ultimately leads to heaven. There's not one thing you can do, not one thing.
Yeah,
Because even the second you try to do it, you are so bound and laced with sin that you just sin and cause yourself to take two steps back.
yeah, you're right.
So you're ultimately you are bound. You're bound in your sin. And yes, you can use the idea of like slavery to sin. Yeah. I mean, again, it's awful. It's supposed to be awful. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
I
um,
see. I see what you're saying. I see. I was taking it. I wasn't thinking about bound to sin. I was thinking about like. I was thinking of it in more of a way of someone maybe who's against Christianity saying like, "Well, I'm not a slave to like God, or I'm not, you know, um, bound to God or something." But I didn't. The way you put that though, yeah, that makes perfect sense because
yeah.
it is. I don't know. That's something I feel like I think about that a lot actually because being especially being a musician, a lot of playing music is that you enjoy playing music
Hmm.
and you feel good when you play music and sometimes you feel good when you sing and sometimes you feel good when you sing in a certain key and sometimes that key does not work for the congregation. and and there's a hard line of like, okay, am I doing this because it makes me feel good, or am I doing this to help the congregation feel good? But if I'm, more like passionate, or I'm really feeling the song more, is that more like, does that is that more of a conviction to the people in the congregation that they can tell that it's like there's emotion behind it? Or it's like this whole messed up thing, and then it's like trying to figure out where the ego is, and where like that's a hard. um I don't think there's, like you said, it's like I am bound to sin. I can't say that every single time I'm up there isn't a small part of me that's like feels a little good for myself personally just to play music,
Yeah.
if that makes sense,
Yeah.
and um I guess I feel lucky that I've gone through a lot of things that have kind of knocked my ego down a lot.
Sure.
So that's been a good thing, but I'm always feeling a little bit like I got to keep myself in check,
Sure.
just to make sure that I'm not like, oh man, I'm going to sing this song and they're going to cry.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
know,
So okay. So in reference, let's actually get a Bible passage in here,
nice.
um, and we're going to go to the Romans chapter 6, and we're going to start at verse 15, and I'm just going to read it. It says, "What then? Are we to sin because we are not under the law but under grace? By no means. Do you not know that if you present yourself to anyone as obedient slaves, you are slaves of one whom you obey, either of sin, which leads to death, or of obedience, which leads to righteousness? But thanks be to God that you who were once slaves of sin have become obedient from the heart to the standard of teaching to which you were committed, and having been set free from sin, have become slaves of righteousness." So, um, and so that's kind of, I mean, again, that's not the only verse. We could, go a little further and go to Romans 9 is kind of your token verse where we tend to go, but Romans 6 at least speaks to the idea of slavery and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, so I guess the point of the matter is that's one of the reasons I wouldn't use free will in that discussion.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, uh,
This is good. We're cooking with gas. This is
yeah, we
great.
we,
I
we, we
like this.
really are. We've lost free speech. That's just gone. Um,
We've lost free speech. But
um,
so, yeah, I mean, okay, so like we're talking about being bound to your
yeah,
sin,
yeah,
and that unfortunately makes pretty much any action we do kind of corrupted in some way, you know.
hmm
Um
yep.
and so is that kind of make it like whenever we have free speech, are you kind of like saying in a way our, I don't know, is our free speech is still bound to that sin in some way? Like we're not just saying some, I don't know.
Honestly, no. You were the one that brought up free will.
Yeah, no, I don't mean, I'm kind of, no, not like free will, but I mean, just the fact that I don't know. Now I'm
Yeah.
now I guess I'm just
No, no,
spinning
no.
in a
Those are
blender.
two separate issues. At
Okay.
least the way I'm picturing them in my mind.
Okay. So
It,
how are you picture, sorry, and you just read something and now maybe I just completely missed the point of it.
okay,
But
so in terms of free speech, to wrap that one up, I would
yeah.
argue that from some of the research that I did, that free speech in its own right is not necessarily a God-given right. It does not mean it's a bad thing. In fact, it's a really good thing. But it is not necessarily something that is guaranteed in Holy Scripture. And in fact, free speech as a whole in Holy Scripture isn't necessarily allowed, right? Like you shouldn't be saying
Hmm.
mean things.
Right.
In this country, in the United States of America, you can say mean things because you're protected because free speech protects even heinous speech and mean
Right.
speech. But as a Christian, you should not be saying mean things, you know, at
Yes.
least not with the purpose of offense to hurt somebody and so on and so forth. Um,
Yeah.
so that's the issue of like freedom of speech. Now, when you get to free will, and again, you got whenever we bring up the topic of free will, we have to be really specific, right? We are talking about salvation. We're not talking
Hmm.
about when you get up in the morning, what kind of shirt you want to wear. Like that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about how do you get to heaven, and and in that regard, when you look at it from the realm of salvation, there is no free will. Like, and even when we talk about things like, you know, like election, if you will, or predestination, so to speak. And this
Yeah.
gets into those deeper topics. But when you start looking at like, predestination and election, you'll notice that how, especially as Lutherans, how we tend to talk, like we say, you know, all of your salvation is dependent on your faith. Your faith is given to you by the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit brings you to faith. Now you can reject the Spirit, but the Spirit is
Yeah.
still going to be the one that brings you to faith. So it's we always say it's kind of like, well, I shouldn't say we. I think I tend to say it's kind of like a Christmas gift, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wake up Christmas morning, somebody gives you a Christmas gift. You don't open the gift and go, look at this great thing I got that I did. It's like, no, it's like so and so gave me this gift, and isn't it wonderful? That being said, like if you reject the gift and kick it out the window, that's you. That's your fault. You know,
Right.
um, so in terms of salvation, we think of it in terms of that kind of that similar way, you know, like if you come to faith and are sustained in faith, that is a working of the Spirit. But if you reject the Spirit, if you harden your heart, so to speak, then that's on you. Like the Spirit didn't do that, you did.
Right. It's very interesting. Yeah. I
Now, in terms now,
yeah.
now hold on, now hold, because
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
now that being said, that being said, part of faith is that idea of trust and hope, and love is part of that hope, and love is in there. If you truly have faith in Christ, and if you truly love God as your heavenly Father, you are going to want to act in a certain way and do certain things. You
Yeah.
just you just are. Part of it is because the Holy Spirit is at work in you. Now, are you ever going to get it perfect? No, absolutely not. But you are going to want to do. I mean, look, I always tell people it's like imagine you said you loved your mom, but you never called her, you never talked to
Yeah.
her, you never went over to her house, you know, you never even thought about her. Like, you know, I don't know if you really love your mom.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
you know, at the same time, if you really do love your mom, you're going to call her every now and again. It might not be as often as she'd like, but you're going to call her every now and again. You're going to say hi. You're going to go over to her house or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And you're not even going to you're not even going to necessarily think about it. You're just going to be like, oh, this is what I do. I love my mom. What? You know?
Yeah. And I think that's something that a lot of non-believers just it's really hard to wrap their head around that idea is that they look at it as like, oh, I don't want to become a Christian and then I have to do all this stuff. It's like it's not a feeling of, oh man, this is like I hate every second of this. It's you want to dive deeper
Yeah.
into it. You want to learn more about it because you like once you get that sort of and like we've been talking, which we'll get to more of it, but talking about like I'm trying to make my way through the Bible now, which I have never read the Bible front to back. So I
Yeah.
really am like I need to do that, and it is. I mean, it's incredible. It's so like I don't know. I'm getting in it, and I'm just there are so many things, things in my mind that are going off and things that it's like, wow, I never, I just didn't realize the context of this. And I didn't realize that this came after this. And it makes everything so much, it makes it really exciting, honestly. And,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason it's the best selling book like of all time. Cause it's actually pretty good.
Hmm.
And people, it's interesting because people, they'll look at it and go like, oh, I don't want to read the Bible. I don't want to do, it's like, it's not going to feel that way when you
Yeah.
actually start like believing, like when you believe it and you get into it, it's not going to feel like you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and sorry, this is another like my sister is in the army,
Sure.
and I love my sister, and she's incredible girl, just incredible. And but like she went to basic training, and they tear you down. They
Sure.
they kind of strip you down of all your of everything, and then they build you back up. And my sister does not view it as like, oh, this horrible. They were taking away my identity, and they were no.
Yeah.
She's like a stronger person for it,
Yeah.
and she's able to accomplish things that she probably never would have. I mean, or I know she wouldn't have
Yeah.
if she hadn't have gone through this. So it's kind of the same thing. It's like putting yourself deeper and deeper into your faith is not it does not feel like slavery as much as they're trying to make it seem like it is. If
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Well, and again,
Prepared background.
I think sometimes when we look at things like good works and stuff like that, I like the approach that I guess it's Walther kind of took, but honestly, it's the way a lot of Lutherans have approached it. Might have been even before that. When we say, like signs of the church, you know, um, are signs of faith. Like, again, same thing with the whole love your mom. Like,
Yeah.
if you go visit your mom and you call your mom and you do all this, we might say you love your mom. Now, that doesn't guarantee. You might really hate your mom, but feel obligated. You
Right.
know, but at least those are the marks. Like that's the mark of somebody who generally loves their mom. You know.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if you never visit her, never talk to her, never call her, never, that might be the mark of somebody who doesn't love their mom. And
Mm-hmm.
and I think the same thing, when we look at our Christian path, we got to ask some of those questions. Does my life reflect the marks of someone who loves Christ and loves his church, or does it reflect the marks of someone who doesn't? Um,
Yeah.
that's not to say you don't have to try sometimes, because sometimes it really is hard, and you really do look at two options and go, "Man, I really want to do the bad one, but I know that I
Yeah.
should probably do the good one." But then there's other things that you look back and people are like, "Yeah, you were really awesome over there," and you're like, "Really? I didn't even think about it." Like, you know,
Yeah.
yes, God calls us to do good works, but again, this is the whole James thing all over again, right? James, who says, I think it's in chapter 2, where he says, like, faith without works is dead, and all the Lutherans cringe because we don't like the idea of works righteousness. But that's not James is really what he's saying there is if you have faith, your life will naturally reflect works.
Yeah.
So show me faith without works, and I'll show you my faith by my works. And
Yeah.
it's like that's kind of what James is saying. Um,
Yeah. And I think that, I don't know. It makes me think of like, I really try as hard as I can when I'm at, in a parking lot or somewhere. If there's trash on the ground, like near our car, I try to pick it up, probably because I want my kids to like be those
yeah,
type of people. But it's also, I'm not, I know that it's not like I'm going to get to heaven and God's going to be like, well, there's that one time you picked up that McDonald's cup in the Walmart parking lot. Good for you. That just got you into heaven. It's like, I know that's not like, but there's a part of me that's like, I know that's what I should do.
yeah,
And so I need to do it. Maybe there's a little part of me that feels good after I do it,
yeah,
and maybe
sure,
that's a selfish thing too. But like, there's just a part of like, you know, I also feel like as a Christian, like that should be who I am. I should be the person who goes, "Oh, I need to pick that up." It's like, that's and it's not anything that I'm forced to do, but I want to do it.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that ties in.
It does. It makes sense. Makes sense. Well, all right. We're a half an hour in. Are you about ready for your segment? You think?
I'm ready if
All
you're
right.
ready. So I am. This is our no stupid questions segment here. I am now in the book of Exodus.
Woohoo! You made it.
Yeah, I know. It's what? It's a lot more epic than I realized.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's like this is like a really quite a tale. But the thing I kind of thinking back to like all the stories, and I'm asking you this to kind of check myself that I'm not reading into something too much or I'm not taking things in a way that just doesn't make sense. But I feel like I know that the Old Testament has a lot of uh, like prophesizing Jesus's coming and um,
Yep.
also like foreshadowing and all that. But it really seems like each person that like we've kind of talked about, like Noah and Abraham, Moses, and like all these people, I feel like each one of them sort of has at least one element of Jesus's like story. It's
Hmm.
kind of like Noah's the only one that God say like he's the only one worth saving, basically. And it's kind of like Jesus is the only one, is the only perfect person who lived a life without sin.
Sure.
And Abraham, God asked him to sacrifice his son, and then of course, told him not to. But it's like Jesus is the
And
sacrifice.
and we went over where that was, right?
Yes,
Okay, I
yeah,
was like, I couldn't remember if we did that last week or not.
I think so. Did we say it real quick? Just
Well,
where
he,
was it
he
again?
Abraham took Isaac to Mount Moriah, which is where the modern day Temple Mount is. It would have been
Oh yeah,
that the Temple Mount is right on the top of Mount Moriah.
yeah. And it just seems so far everything, and like Moses went through, they put him in the river because they were trying to kill all the sons.
Hmm.
And Jesus, they tried to do the same thing when Jesus was when they found out, Jesus was born, when the wise men showed up. And it just seems to me like all these stories are like, all of them are connected in that way. And I'm just like, I'm just sitting here thinking, am I reading too much into this? Am I trying too hard to make these connections? Or is that like, would you agree with all that?
What what you're venturing into is the idea of typology,
Uh-huh.
where each one of those acts as kind of a type of Christ, so to speak. Um, and in that regard, I would say that you're probably right on the money. I mean, there's just a lot of
Okay.
it in the Old Testament. There's no doubt that sometimes people will go to extremes to make stretches. But that being said, by and large, like yeah, the Jesus is foreshadowed all over the place. And when you have major figures that act as, in a sense, a type of Christ, that's called typology. And
Okay.
so yeah, I don't think you're off really at all. Um,
Okay, cool. Well, that makes me feel better.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
because I just there's something to me about like each one of them has this one little element that kind of reflects Jesus's like story,
yeah,
and but they're not perfect. They're
yeah.
not God, so they do have their faults, even though they do have like one part of it that Jesus sort of replicates or his story
Hmm.
involves. But it's really cool to, I mean, I guess some of those I just never really thought of them until I started hearing all the stories back to back, and then it's kind of like, man, this is really like
Yeah.
they're really yeah, getting into I don't know, Jesus' story, and like or foreshadowing it. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's mostly I get my question. I'm still partway through Exodus, so I'm gonna get through that here, and but it's been really interesting. But typology, you say?
Yeah. So
I
typology
never
is
heard of
the
that.
study of in essence the foreshadowing of Christ in the Old Testament, but more specific, where certain characters act as a type of Christ.
Yeah,
And so that's
interesting.
part of it. Now, I will say this: when you start venturing through, because you've gotten through Genesis, you're into Exodus now. Um, and Exodus is really like the beacon light. It is the Moses Egypt encounter is kind of like the pinnacle element of the Old Testament in a sense.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, again, this is think about like the Passover meal. I mean, it's all surrounding around
Yes. Yeah.
the narrative of Moses and the Egyptians. Um, Now, but I will also say this, like one of there's a lot of elements in the Old Testament that the more you look at them, they kind of make sense. But at the same time, it's like there's similarities when you start pushing it into the New Testament. So, for instance, one of the things that's really heavy in the Old Testament, and it's going to be throughout the whole Old Testament, is this idea of land theology. Um,
Okay.
and you've already seen that, right? Like the Promised Land. Everybody wants to get to the Promised Land,
Right.
and so everything becomes about this Promised Land. Like you got to get to the Promised Land. You got to go here, and then eventually you're going to get into the wars, and they lose part of the Promised Land, and the Promised Land gets split up because they go to war with each other, and you're going to get into all of that kind of stuff. But notice how it's always directed towards land, and
Hmm.
sometimes that's hard for us Christians to understand. But one of the things that really helps us, and quite frankly helped me whenever I was first kind of like trying to process all of this, um, is the fact that they're looking at the promised land in a lot of ways the same way we look at heaven. And
Oh,
and
okay.
and that's actually a pretty fair comparison. That's our promised land. You know,
Uh-huh.
we don't have a nation that we're looking forward to. We have the new heavens and the new earth. And we're always kind of heading towards that as kind of a goal. It's a promise. And so anyway, but you'll notice you have land theology that's tossed throughout, and you'll notice it's a huge part of who they are. You
Mhm.
know, um, maybe we can even argue that that's the way we should be. Heaven should be a huge part of who we are, as we
Mhm.
kind of march on that way. um but anyway, so those are some things to kind of like highlights, kind of thinking about. Yes, typology is huge, but don't miss land theology, which is right in front of you. um
Gotcha. That's very I've learned two terms I've never heard of, I think, in my life.
what?
That land theology. I've never heard anybody ever say that,
Oh
to
yeah,
be
sorry.
honest.
Yeah,
No, no. I mean, it's just interesting. I've never. And then the other one you said, was it
typology. Yeah,
typology? Yeah. No, I've just never heard that phrase. So it's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, I mean, again, you're in a very interesting section of scripture, of course, with Exodus, with Moses, and again, yeah, it's just great. It does, the part that's going to be really hard to read is going to be coming up after this narrative. And so right after this narrative, you get kind of into the law, and then you get into Levitical law, and then you get into Deuteronomy, which is second. So it's a second giving of the law, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you get you get into some very tedious reading, and
Right.
that's where a lot of people struggle with. So what I would suggest to you, if you haven't done it already, is make a plan to, say, read a chapter and then read a chapter of some other book. You know, um,
Oh, gotcha.
read a
Okay.
chapter, read a chapter, another book. Just to kind of separate it out. And plus, you don't. Plus, the other thing is also true. Like, know your limits. Because I mean, again, some of it gets really dry and really boring. And what happens is, you over time, if you read too much stuff like that, your eyes kind of glaze over and you kind of quit paying attention.
Right.
You read the words, but you don't actually pay attention to anything that they actually say. And so,
Uh,
and
that's how I got through high school. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so, and it's one of those things, like, Leviticus kind of gets a bad rap, but actually it's got a lot of really good stuff in there. But it is one of those things where, like, you've got to kind of understand some stuff going in. And so,
Yeah.
and who knows, maybe that'll be next time. We'll see how far you get,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. We'll see.
what
I mean,
questions you have for me. But
yeah, I feel,
yeah,
and I know you'll say like, "Oh, it's probably okay," but it's, I feel I'm probably not moving as fast as I should through it. I feel like I'm taking my time a little bit, but I
oh
want to make
yeah,
sure I want to make sure I'm actually listening to it and not like, you know working on something and not. I mean,
yeah,
I'm doing it sometimes when I'm working, but I want to make sure I have enough brain capacity to actually focus on what it's saying. So
yeah. I
yeah,
get that.
we'll see.
I get that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Very. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Thanks. That's good because those are connections I never really put together. Just as like a kid learning all my Bible stories, I've never really made that connect. It was just like, oh, here's something this guy did, and this is what this guy
Yeah,
did,
yeah.
and that's kind of interesting. But now it's like, well, these are all kind of connected, like in a
Absolutely,
way,
they
and
are.
so that's really interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely, they are. And
Mm.
that's, and again, that's that, especially with some of the Good Shepherd classes that I teach, and even some of the Bible classes that I've taught, like, that is huge. Like, I walk in and I say, okay, let's get all these stories kind of connected up, you know,
Yeah.
so you can talk about it. You talk about, like, the Cain and Abel connection and how Cain was probably raised, and it's like that's really eye opening to some folks.
It is. Yeah, it's very different. It's a very different interpretation of what is going on than what I think we naturally want to think.
Yeah,
I think we naturally want to think, well, he's a bad guy.
yeah.
You know, he killed somebody, and first guy to kill someone.
Oh
He
yeah.
invented murder, so
Well, and again, even
I'm
for
just kidding.
your sake, like, you're coming at this, like, when you're a kid, you don't really think of much else other than yourself. And I'm not saying that, like, they're super selfish. I'm just saying, like, think about you. You got a wife, you got children. Like,
Hmm.
you've got to think of a lot of other people other than yourself. And as you approach some of these biblical stories with that in mind, you're going to approach them different. And I hate to say this, but you're going to
Yeah.
find yourself on the wrong end of some of these stories. You
Yeah.
know, you're going to say, "Wow, if you really," I mean, again, you don't have to admit it, but like at the same time, like there's been plenty of times where I myself have gone, I remember it hit for me, and you haven't reached this story yet, even though I know you know it, but like when they spied out the promised land after leaving right before they
Yeah.
were cursed for the 40 years of wandering with Moses, like, and Joshua of Nun goes in there, and he comes back, and Joshua and Nun and one other are like, yeah, let's go in there, let's do them. And then all the other 10 that were kind of like the other guys are like, well, hold on now, just hold on. Like, these guys are pretty good size. And again, once you understand that what the military did, if you got defeated, what they did to your women and children was horrendous.
Oh
And
yeah.
so, you know,
Yeah. They're like, let's take a step back and think about this. Yeah.
exactly. And again, whenever I started really putting that into place and started thinking about that, and I was like, yeah, I probably would have been with the 10, not with
Right.
not with Joshua. You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, I get it. Yeah. It's definitely very different, you know.
And
And that's
and
why sometimes that following God is scary.
yeah.
Sometimes it
And
really
again,
is.
making that realization, like coming to that conclusion, going, wow, I think I may have been on the wrong side of this. Like, and
Yeah.
that causes, even to some degree, a deeper reflection about, like, okay, you know, what are maybe some other things God called me to do that I ignored because I thought I was doing the right thing, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Very interesting. Yeah.
oh yeah, it's good times.
Yeah.
All
All right. We
right.
probably move on to your next segment there.
Yep, it's time.
Welcome now to Saints in the Shadows. Hear the stories of the saints, learn about things you never knew. See if you can figure out who the saint is before the end.
All right. In today's edition of Saints in the Shadows, we have a lady. This, in its own right, is not uncommon. There are plenty of ladies that we call saints, and for good reason. One of the interesting things about this one is, well, not about what we know, but in fact, more about what we do not know. I don't know who her mother was. I don't know who her father was. I don't know if she was rich. I don't know if she was poor. I can make some assumptions, of course, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure she wasn't a queen. I'm, in fact, pretty sure she wasn't noble in any way. And yet, with all these things that she wasn't, so it is that she was. She wasn't a preacher, and yet through her many people heard God's word. She wasn't a prophet, and yet through her people listened to the voice of God. She wasn't a queen, and yet she had people that loved her and followed her. She wasn't noble, at least I don't think. And yet, to the people around her, I bet they would disagree. To them, she was special. Not just a little special, but special enough that her death sent ripples throughout the community. All of this for a simple, widowed woman who worked in a port town, a town where the salt and the sea met rocks, where ships and sails were often located, where sails that sometimes tore needed mending. In the midst of this was Gazelle. Gazelle was good at fixing sails. Gazelle was good at stitching and sewing. Gazelle was good at what she did. I sometimes wonder what it was like when Gazelle was younger, or at least when she was married. Did she sew then? Did she repair the ships? Did her husband? How did she even, how did he die? And what did he do? All of these end up being unanswered questions, unanswered for us right now. But what we do know is that Gazelle was good at stitching. She was good not just at fixing sails, but even at making clothes and other things of need. And so Gazelle kept going without a husband, probably without an income. Now, in the ancient world, I will say women were not afforded many rights, especially if you were widowed. Rome had made strides to maybe correct some of these issues, but at least at the time of this story, it's really hard to say how Gazelle was, as a widow anyway. It was possible for her to have at least some money, but then again, maybe not. It was possible for her to even have land, but by the looks of things of what we do know, maybe not. And so it is that Gazelle, with all her stitching, with all her work, one day she got ill, and one day more she died. And there was a certain loss in the community. It rippled, as I said earlier, the community that loved her, the community that knew her. And while most would certainly have a void when someone they loved died, it just so happened that around this area a rock was around. Peter, anyway. Peter the Rock was near by this port town that nowadays we would call Tel Aviv. But back then it was simply called Joppa. After Peter was ushered there, and they showed some of the things that this woman had made and sewn and tried to tell her how important it was, he ushered everyone out. He prayed with his gazelle. Well, gazelle, which is a translation of the word Tabitha, which is also translated sometimes as Dorcas. Dorcas, who's mentioned in the book of Acts, chapter 9, who was a seamstress, who liked to stitch, who liked to sew, who was so wonderfully good at it, who a lot of times gave it away, who was known to be charitable, and yet she died and was raised back to life by St. Peter. All right, and that marks the end of my Saints in the Shadows. Let me see here. Dorcas is celebrated on October 25th, which is this coming Saturday.
Very nice.
Yeah. So basically what this is offering, so I did a little research trying to find some things. And basically what I gathered was, for a dish for this Saturday, the correct thing would be to make a stew, and then to make the bread like instead of like biscuits or something with your stew, make it a flat bread, and then you're supposed to fold it in the shape of a cloak.
A cloak. Oh,
Yeah, because that's one of the things that she sewed. So
interesting.
So apparently this is called cloak stew, but whatever.
Cloak stew. Okay.
And the drink is called the Gazelle's Grace. Which, to be honest, I thought was just a made up thing. Because I'll be honest, I asked AI for some help on the drink, and like it spit out the Gazelle's Grace, and I was like, that's not a real thing. Like this is just making stuff up. I went and looked it up. It surely is.
Ah.
I only found it on like one or two websites, but it's a legit drink of sorts. Don't know how good it is, but it is.
Yeah.
It is not named after Dorcas, which translated means gazelle, but that's beside the point. So you start with white grape juice or dry white wine, and you put elderflower syrup in it.
Elderflower syrup.
And it has a splash of lemon, and you usually tie it off and top it with a little bit of fresh mint leaf, and you can finish off the rest of your glass with sparkling water or Prosecco. So anyway.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's kind of a mixture of sweet and soothing, but also kind of got with that lemon in there. I guess it's got a little bit of a bite to it as well.
Yeah.
I found one recipe anyway that also said you could put lavender on it, which I don't know if that's everybody's cup of tea, but I mean, technically you can add it to this drink. So
Interesting. Yeah, that sounds like a crazy drink to me, but I
it
don't
kind of,
really drink.
does. I don't know if I would like this one, if I'm honest. Of course, I don't know where
Yeah.
even to find elderflower syrup. So
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, where do you get that? That's
I don't
interesting.
even know. I don't know where to find that. Oh
Huh.
man. All right. So that thus ends.
And so it ends. The light shines in the shadow. And now you know more about the story of one of the saints of history.
Very nice. You need to start doing a video where you make all the drinks. Where you're just like, hey, this is Pastor Chris, and today and while you're doing, you're already like stirring something,
Oh
going,
man.
today we're gonna have our drink based off of Dorcas, the Saint Dorcas, and we're just gonna. That would be a fun watch. I'd watch that.
Yeah, we'll have to work on that, but I'll have to find elderberry syrup.
Yeah, I don't know where you're
Which I
getting
don't even
that,
know where
but
to find that. So,
yeah.
all right, on to our next segment.
And it's time for Lectionary Loop and our look at the upcoming lectionary texts.
All right, so lectionary loop this coming Sunday is a big Sunday for us. It is Reformation Sunday.
Yeah.
So Reformation Sunday, for those that don't know, is celebrated at the end of October. It's always the last Sunday in October, and part of the reason for that is because Luther nailed the 95 Theses to the church door in Wittenberg, supposedly on October 31st of 1517. Now, notice I said supposedly, and part of that is because a lot of this information comes from letters that we got from Luther and Melanchthon, where they later tried to recount, what happened in the past. And so there is some dispute over the date, but honestly, it's probably pretty close to that, if not exactly on that date. So anyway, so it is celebrated always at the end of October, and so our readings actually reflect that. We have, of course, 3 different readings that we typically do, and let's see here. We have one from the Book of Revelation, chapter 14, where it talks about the proclamation of the gospel. More specifically, an angel's flying directly overhead, and he has this gospel proclamation that he's proclaiming to those that are gathered. We also have a Romans 3 passage going 19 through 28, which emphasizes faith alone. And we also have a John passage. Now, there's an optional passage to use the Gospel of Matthew, but predominantly we use the Gospel of John. At least we do at St. John's. And it's John 8, verses 31 to 36, and it is talking about how the truth will set you free. So all of these are kind of emphasizing the same point, the gospel message, which brings about faith, which sets you free. And so it really is kind of very much geared towards the Reformation in terms of a historical moment. Now, to give you a little bit of history, because again, it is Reformation Sunday,
Yeah.
and I know we've covered it before, but at the same time, you got to Luther in 1517 nailed the 95 Theses to the church door in Wittenberg. Now, Wittenberg was a big college town, and so this was kind of like the college, like, pinboard, announcement center. And he wrote these in Latin. And see, that's one of those things too. I'll be honest with you. We talked about Greek and Hebrew last week, and somebody asked me why I didn't bring up Latin. I was like, because my Latin's really rusty. That's why.
You don't speak it regularly with anybody?
You think I would really, I told her I had to break out my wheelocks anyway, which is my Latin textbook.
Yeah. I don't know how you maintain Latin, to be honest, unless you just study it like every day. But Yeah.
So my Latin is really rusty. But Luther spoke and wrote in Latin because that was the very much the academic language of the day. The Bible that almost everybody used was Jerome's Vulgate, which would have been Latin as well. And honestly, to be honest with you, if we ever get on a side topic and talk about Jerome's Vulgate, it really is an amazing Bible. Like it's got some inaccuracies, but it really is an amazing Bible. And what Jerome did was crazy. So anyway, enough of that. So anyway, so he wrote it in Latin. It was supposed to be a collegiate debate. Colleges still do this today, where you wrote
Right.
something semi-controversial, you throw it up there, and you want to have like a debate. You want to have a back and forth about it, and that's what Luther was doing. It was mainly focused on the sale of indulgences, which was something that the Catholic Church, I think they still do, but it's not as advertised. But the idea is basically like, once you die, assuming you did not do enough to earn your way into heaven, you go to a place where you can purge yourself of your sin. And by purging yourself of your sin, you can kind of start to work your way into heaven. But an indulgence was where like the Pope himself or some high up authority would in essence, make the provisions and the prayers for you to basically spring you from purgatory into heaven. So it's kind of a good gig if you can get it, like if you got an aunt or a grandma or something, you're like, man, you pay a little bit of money and then, this is done and accomplished. So Luther was not necessarily for this. And again, there's a lot of historical reasons, in between the Pope and some of the princes and so on and so forth. But one of the things that's really fascinating, I was talking about this even this week, is like, whenever Luther wrote those and posted those, he was really Catholic. And like, if you pull those things out and you read them, like if you get them translated into English and read them, yeah, Luther's really Catholic right there. He is, don't expect to read it going like, oh, he's a fully developed, Lutheran theologian. Like, no. He's Catholic. He's very Catholic. He will become what we understand as Lutheran theology later, through a lot of in-depth study, research, and reading of Holy Scriptures. But he doesn't start there, and the whole thing like burns out of control. It's like a spark that lights a fire in all of Europe, which inevitably becomes Lutheran theology. So yeah,
that's very interesting. It's fun. These are things that we've talked about before. Like my church, we didn't have any traditions. So for me, I actually have really like enjoyed kind of, hey, Reformation Sunday, this is fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's nice to have these kind of mile markers throughout the year and everything to celebrate. Because before we just didn't have any of that, or I just didn't grow up with any of that. So
sure,
I'm enjoying this. Yeah.
So yeah, and so that's part of Reformation Sunday. It was the nailing of the 95 Theses to the door on Wittenberg ended up being a spark that just lit a fire that an academic, a philosophical, a theological fire throughout Europe. And and Luther responded, and again, at the time he didn't want any of it. He didn't want it. He was kind of forced into it, but he handled himself.
When you say he's kind of forced into it, what do you mean? Like,
well, so an anarchist group took the theses, translated them into German, and then reposted them on the door, and then the people got a hold of them. And so by the time they started selling the indulgences, as soon as they started selling the indulgences, the people were mad and kind of almost chased them out of town. And so then that, of course, got back to the higher authorities, who then wanted Luther to apologize. And, and again, it's just like this background. And then he was like told he had to defend himself. And again, it just kind of spiraled. And again, Luther didn't want any of it. Like,
yeah,
again,
I'm sure I I think I don't know. I feel like I understand this 100% because it is not fun to voice your opinion when others don't, are going to be angry by it.
Yeah.
And I can picture, seeing that where, he says he just gives an opinion, and then I can see people get upset very quickly. So
Yeah.
that's interesting.
So I always tell people, like, if you want to read a good book on Luther, like a biography, because his life is crazy. It reads kind of like a novel. It really does. It was a crazy life. But I always suggest reading Luther the Reformer by Kittleson. It's put out by CPH. They, a few years in 2017, we did a Bible class, and I led everybody through the life of Luther, and I had them all get that book. But it's just a really well written one, and it's a quick read. It's a fun, easy read.
Oh, that's good.
In fact, it's probably been a few years since I've read it, so I'll probably go back and read it again. Because I do. There's other ones that are out there. There's better ones in terms of more advanced stuff. The Par Excellence is written by a guy by the name of Martin Brecht, and it's 3 volumes. So it's pretty good. But if you want just a good quick read that'll give you the basics, get Luther the Reformer by Kittleson.
Interesting.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That was a good sell. Easy read. I like that.
Oh, it is. It is. I've read it. I've probably read that book like 3 or 4 times, and like I said, I'll probably read it again. It's just really well done. So
that's good. Yeah. All right. Well, I think are we to our last segment then?
I think we are.
To our last segment, probably.
All right. Are we ready for church chatter? Oh, we got it.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Oh, we got
church chatter going on.
Yeah.
Church chatter. So the big things going on right now is we have, of course, our toy hobby show, which is coming up not this Sunday, but the Sunday after, next Sunday. We're looking forward to the Harvest Fest. I think it's going to be November 9th. And then, you know what? I'm going to mention this. We got some really cool stuff. First of all, I know from our church standpoint anyway, the Good Shepherd is looking for recipes. Oh. They are making a cookbook, and I think it's really cool.
That's awesome.
But let me tell you something else, and this is just the coolest thing ever. They are going to do, it's November 20th. They are going to have a glow bingo night.
Oh man.
Right?
That's pretty awesome.
Yes. It's like glow bingo. So anyway, it's for families. It's fun for the family, but it is also kind of like a fundraiser kind of thing. So it's like, dude, they're going to have this just sounds awesome. It just sounds awesome. November 20th, glow bingo. Mark your calendars. So anyway, that
glow big or glow home.
That's right.
Catchphrase or something. Yeah.
But anyway, we got some cool stuff going on at Good Shepherd. Really awesome stuff. But yeah, I think I think for right now that's what's going on. I mean, and really, you think about it, like that's a lot because Thanksgiving is coming up, and we'll have our Thanksgiving Eve service, and then guess what? We're into Advent.
Yeah.
Ooh, we're heading to Christmas.
Here we come. Yep. We're almost there.
Almost. Almost. You sick of Christmas music yet?
Oh, I have not. I wish I was in the thick of it right now, but I've been so. I have we do a big night called Jazz Fest. Well, Jazz Night, but the day is Jazz Fest because we work with the kids all day, and then Jazz Night is the performance. And if anybody wants to come, it is open to the public. It's a fundraiser for Washington Middle School's music program, who has a really great band director. I have to say, I might be biased because I'm married to her, but but it's a really fun night. So, but it's a lot of preparation. My whole band plays for it, and we let the vocal jazz group perform, and we accompany them. We play all the music with them, and it's a really awesome.
Remind me again, when is that?
That is November 15th.
November 15th. So that's a Saturday, right?
the Saturday. Yep.
Yeah.
7:00. It's going to be, and there's I don't remember the exact price because I think they were mulling over what ticket price to do, but it's either, I think it might be $10 and maybe it might be less than that depending.
Yeah.
But there's auction items. There's
okay.
there's, like, once you pay and you get in, there's desserts and cookies and cupcakes, and there's a couple of very, very gifted moms who are very good bakers.
Yeah.
And so it's quite a treat. But anyway, that's a really fun night. But I wish I was more into my Christmas music right now. But I am kind of a little hung up on that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but in the next week, I should be done. I mean, everything should be done, as far as prepping for it. So I should be onto it. But I'll be getting, I prepped a lot last year with my first year doing Christmas at Our Savior.
Yeah.
Getting Christmas songs and medleys and things together. So this year, I'm like, all right, I'm already I got some already, worked up and ready to go. So I'm not going to be as stressed, hopefully, but we'll see. Have you started getting Christmas music yet?
Man, I barely got through tomorrow, I've had a couple people ask me about Advent series and stuff yet, and I'm like, I don't know. So I started looking at that today because I was like, people are asking, I better have an answer for pretty soon.
Yeah. It's, it's crazy how we get to this point and it's like, oh my gosh, October's almost over, and then it's November, and then it's basically Christmas. So
pretty much.
Yep. It's it's almost here. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh man. So anything else for you going on over that way?
No, they made a call. I know that the person is going to be visiting on Friday.
Okay.
And I think it sounds pretty promising,
Yeah.
as far as kind of what their background is and everything they've been doing. It sounds like maybe this could be a potential match for them, hopefully. So we'll see what happens with that. But our new secretary has started and she's doing really great, and we're just, things are moving along a little bit. Hopefully we'll see what happens after Friday. But
all right.
Sounds and then our craft vendor fair is Saturday.
Oh yeah, Saturday. Yeah. Don't want to forget stuff like that.
Yeah, so that should be a good one. They've done a lot of work clearing out stuff in the church to make room for all the tables and everything. It'll be a good one. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, all right. Well, I don't have anything else. So
yeah, I think I'm good.
Well, all right. Well, hey everybody, thanks for listening. I was going to say in the evening, but honestly, at any time, whenever you listen, we appreciate it. So God's blessings to all of you. Bye.
Bye.